Health officials have still not been able to find the infection source of the 2 local COVID cases announced on Sunday. The 2 cases are connected to a growing cluster infection at Taoyuan General Hospital that now involves 15 cases. Across Northern Taiwan, a mass quarantine campaign is underway to uncover new cases and control viral spread. So far, 2,991 people have been served orders to complete home isolation under the campaign.
After a day's work, there are now 2,991 people under the 14-day home isolation order. We need a little more time to deliver notices to some home isolators because the notices need to be delivered in person.
With the cluster infection growing, the CECC is expecting to place 5,000 people in home isolation. So far, it's tracked down 2,991 people, many of whom were either inpatients at the hospital or their caregivers. Anyone who lives with them is instructed to wait for a home isolation order and to not leave the house. The government's 1922 COVID hotline has been ringing off the hook.
From 7 p.m. to midnight, there were 9,721 calls. That's a huge number. Less than 30% of those calls were answered. By this afternoon, we should be able to get that rate back up to at least 90%. I would hereby like to apologize for the trouble.
Chen apologized and said staff members would be added to manage the hotline. The CECC has already marshaled local health bureaus, police officers and neighborhood officials to execute the home isolation order. The order affects inpatients discharged from Taoyuan General Hospital between January 6th and 19th, all their caregivers, and anyone who resides with them or their caregivers. They are subject to 14 days of home isolation starting from the day they were discharged from the hospital. After that, they need to be tested and undergo an additional 7 days of self-health management. The home isolation order also applies to anyone who came into contact with patient 889 at the hospital during his visit. With the outbreak spiraling quickly, the CECC has been criticized for being slow to respond initially.
不过一开始做的判断是可能是局部性的感染。
They judged it to be a localized outbreak, so the measures that were taken followed this judgment. But looking back, of course the measures taken at the beginning weren't perfect. It's true. I don't know how they are going to manage 5,000 people. It's extremely complicated and requires a lot of resources. We currently have more than 40,000 people in home quarantine. During our peak period last year, on March 21st, we had 40,000, and we had 52,000 on March 28th. I expect that this time, we won't have so many people during the peak period, which should last until January 27th.
The containment orders are expanding, as are COVID anxieties. A wave of returnees is expected ahead of the Lunar New Year. Chen says Taiwan will be on heightened alert until at least February 4th, while experts believe the alert will stay in place for much longer.